The grand hall of the orbital station Aethelgard smelled of ozone and expensive perfume, a combination Ronin had learned to associate with trouble. As a human security contractor in a room full of celestial royalty, he was already the oddity. He stood near the western pillar, his posture relaxed but his eyes constantly scanning the shifting crowd of diplomats, high-born aliens and nervous servers. His tuxedo was tailored to hide the bulk of a pulse pistol and the rigid lines of light armor mesh beneath, but he still felt like a rough stone in a jewelry box. At the center of the room, Queen Lyra sat upon a floating dais. She was the reason he was sweating in this suit. The sovereign of the Valari people, she was terrifyingly beautiful. Her skin was the color of moonlight on snow, pale and iridescent, and her hair flowed like liquid obsidian down her back. But it was her eyes that unnerved him, violet, pupilless, and ancient. She looked bored. Ronin caught the subtle tap of her long finger against the armrest of her throne. It was a tic he had noticed after 3 months of guarding her. She hated parties, she hated politics. "Status check, Ronin," the comms earpiece buzzed. It was Kale, the head of the Royal Guard, a Valari warrior who believed humans were only slightly more useful than decorative ferns. "Sector 4 is clear," Ronin muttered, his voice low. "Though the ambassador from the Krell sector is looking at the buffet like he wants to invade it. Keep the chatter to a minimum, human. The Queen is exposed during the toast." Ronin didn't need the reminder. He watched Lyra rise. The room hushed instantly. The silence was heavy, the kind that pressed against your eardrums. She held up a goblet of crystalline nectar. As she began to speak, her voice melodic and projecting without a microphone, Ronin felt a prickle at the base of his neck. It was an instinct he had honed in the slums of Earth and the mercenary wars of the Outer Rim. It was the feeling of being watched by something that wasn't looking to shake hands. He scanned the upper balconies. Shadows danced near the ventilation shafts. Nothing on the thermal scans. Nothing on the motion sensors. But the feeling grew, a cold knot in his stomach. Then he saw it, not a person but a shimmer. A distortion in the air near the heavy velvet drapes behind the throne. A stealth cloak, high-end military grade. The kind that fooled sensors but couldn't completely erase the displacement of light. "Contact rear!" Ronin shouted, breaking every protocol of royal decorum. He didn't wait for Kale's order. He didn't wait for the Queen to turn. Ronin sprinted. He moved with a speed that surprised the courtiers. A blur of human desperation. The shimmer resolved into a figure as the cloak dropped to reveal a weapon. A jagged, ugly rifle glowing with chaotic green energy. A disruptor, the kind that didn't just kill, it unraveled DNA. Lyra turned, her violet eyes widening not in fear but in confusion. She hadn't seen the gunman. She only saw Ronin rushing at her. "Get down!" he roared. He launched himself into the air just as the assassin pulled the trigger. The sound was like a thunderclap trapped in a bottle. Ronin didn't feel the impact at first. He just felt the collision as he tackled Queen Lyra off the dais. They hit the polished floor hard, a tangle of limbs and silk. Then the pain arrived. It wasn't a sharp sting. It was a consuming fire. It started in his chest and radiated outward, turning his blood to acid. Ronin gasped, his vision swimming. He looked down. The disruptor bolt had caught him square in the torso. His armor was gone, melted away, and beneath it his flesh was glowing with a sickly green light that was slowly spreading. "Ronin!" The voice was commanding, yet laced with a tremor he'd never heard before. Lyra was hovering over him. Her hands, cool and smooth, hovered over the wound, afraid to touch the burning energy. "Secure the exits, seal the room." Kale's voice boomed somewhere distant. The sound of boots and panic filled the hall. But for Ronin, the world was narrowing down to the face of the Queen. You're heavy," Ronin wheezed, a bubble of blood forming on his lips. He tried to smile, to offer his usual cynical wit, but his body refused to cooperate. "Stay still," Lyra commanded. Her violet eyes were scanning him, analyzing the damage with a frantic intensity. "The energy is necrotic, it's tearing you apart." "Bad way to go," Ronin muttered. The darkness was creeping in at the edges of his vision. "At least, didn't spill the wine." "Be silent, you fool." She looked up, screaming at the medics rushing toward them. "He needs stabilization now!" The royal medics arrived, their scanners flashing. They looked at the wound and then exchanged grim glances. One of them, an elder Valari with silver robes, shook his head. "Your Majesty, it is a void disruptor. The cellular decay is already at 40%. His human physiology cannot withstand it." He has minutes. Fix him! Lyra snapped. We cannot, the medic said, stepping back. We have no antidotes for this level of corruption. His system is collapsing. He is a human, Majesty. He is fragile. Ronin felt the cold seeping into his bones. The fire in his chest was dulling into a numbness that was far worse. He looked at Lyra. For the first time, the mask of the untouchable queen was gone. She looked terrified. I ordered you to protect me, she whispered, leaning close, her hair creating a curtain around them, blocking out the chaos. I did not order you to die. Part of the job, Ronin breathed. His hand twitched, instinctively reaching for hers, then stopping. He was a grunt. She was the queen. Even dying, he knew the rules. Lyra saw the hesitation. She grabbed his hand, squeezing it tight. Then her eyes hardened. A look of dangerous resolve crossed her face. Is there any way to halt the decay? She demanded of the medic. The medic hesitated. Technically, a direct infusion of regenerative energy could stall it. But human medicine is insufficient. The only substance potent enough to rewrite his dying cells would be Valari royal essence. The room went silent. Even the panic seemed to pause. The blood of the sovereign, Lyra said softly. It is forbidden. Cale had arrived, his armor scorched from the pursuit. He looked at Ronin with pity, but his loyalty was to the law. Majesty, Article 1 of the Eternal Code. No royal shall spill their blood for a lesser being. It is treason against your own lineage. It dilutes the power. It is punishable by abdication. He took a disruptor bolt meant for my heart, Cale, Lyra said, her voice icy. The law assumes I care more for my lineage than for justice. It will kill him, the medic argued. Human veins cannot handle the potency of royal blood. He will burn from the inside. Lyra looked back at Ronin. He was fading fast. His eyes were losing focus, the green corruption creeping up his neck. Ronin, she said, her voice cutting through the haze. Look at me. He forced his eyes to focus on the violet pools. This is going to hurt, she said. Already hurts, he managed. Lyra reached into the folds of her gown and pulled out a small ceremonial dagger she always carried. Without hesitation, she drew the blade across her palm. It was a shimmering, luminous gold, pulsing with its own light. Majesty, no, Cale shouted, stepping forward, but Lyra raised a hand, telekinetically slamming him back against the pillar. She pressed her bleeding palm directly onto Ronin's chest, right over the glowing green wound. The scream that tore from Ronin's throat wasn't human. It felt like she had poured molten sun into his veins. The golden blood didn't just sit on the surface, it aggressively invaded the wound, seeking out the green corruption and devouring it. Ronin arched his back, his muscles locking up. He felt the gold spreading, racing through his arteries, burning away the weakness, burning away the humanity, rewriting the code of his existence. Breathe, Ronin, Lyra whispered, tears finally spilling from her violet eyes. She kept her hand pressed down, her own life force flowing into him. Do not dare leave me. His vision turned white. The last thing he felt was the terrifying, overwhelming power of her blood mixing with his own, and the sensation that he was no longer just Ronin. He was something else, and he belonged to her. Waking up felt less like rising from sleep and more like being reassembled. Molecule by molecule, Ronin gasped, sitting bolt upright. He expected the medical bay of the station. He expected the sterile white lights and the smell of antiseptic. Instead, he was in a room of velvet and dark wood lit by floating orbs of soft amber light. The royal chambers. He looked down at his chest. The tuxedo was gone, replaced by loose silk trousers and bandages. He peeled back the dressing. Where the disruptor had carved a hole in him, there was now a scar. But it wasn't a normal scar. It was an intricate web of gold lines pulsing faintly in rhythm with his heartbeat. He flexed his hand. It felt powerful, too powerful. He gripped the edge of the metal bedside table, and the steel groaned, warping under his fingers like wet clay. He let go, staring at his hand in horror. You possess the grip of a war strider now. I would be gentle with the furniture. Ronin looked up. Queen Lyra was sitting in a high-backed chair across the room. She wasn't wearing her royal regalia. She wore a simple robe, her hair loose. She looked exhausted, pale, but her eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that made him want to stand at attention. Majesty, Ronin croaked. His voice sounded deeper, more resonant. I'm alive. You are, she said. She stood and walked toward him. There was a hesitation in her step, a vulnerability he wasn't used to. Against the advice of my council, my medics, and common sense. The medic said. Ronin touched his chest. He said, "Your blood would kill me." "It nearly did. You seized for 3 hours. Your heart stopped twice. I had to restart it." She looked away, a faint flush coloring her pale cheeks. "Restart it? How?" "It does not matter," she said quickly, dismissing the memory of how she had laid beside him, using her own biorhythm to force his heart to beat in sync with hers. "What matters is that the corruption is gone." Ronin swung his legs out of bed. He stood up. He felt taller, though he knew he wasn't. His senses were dialed up to 11. He could hear the hum of the station's gravity generators 3 decks down. He could smell the ozone on Lyra's skin. "Kyle said it was treason," Ronin said quietly. "Giving blood to a human." Article 1. Lyra's expression hardened. "Kyle speaks of laws written 1,000 years ago. I am the queen, I am the law. You could lose your throne, Lyra." The name slipped out before he could stop it. He stiffened, waiting for the reprimand. He never used her first name, but she didn't flinch. She stepped closer, stopping only inches from him. "I would rather lose a throne than the one man who saw a disruptor bolt and thought only of my safety." The air between them crackled. It wasn't just sexual tension, it was literal energy. Ronin could feel a buzzing in his veins that intensified as she got closer. It was like magnetism. "What is this?" Ronin whispered, looking at his hands. I feel you." "A side effect," Lyra admitted, looking troubled. "Royal blood does not just heal, it binds. You carry a part of my essence now, Ronin. We are tethered." "Tethered?" "I can feel your confusion," she said softly. "Your fear and your loyalty." Ronin looked into her eyes. He realized she was right. He could feel a hum in the back of his mind that wasn't his own. He felt a deep, crushing weight of responsibility. Her responsibility. He felt her loneliness. "This is going to make being your bodyguard very complicated," Ronin said, trying to find his footing. "You are no longer my bodyguard, Ronin," she said. His heart dropped. "You're firing me? After I took a bullet for you. I cannot employ you as security. You are now a bloodkin to the throne. Technically, you outrank the general." A small, tired smile touched her lips. "And besides, the council is demanding your execution. They say you are an abomination, a human with the strength of a Valari royal." Ronin's survival instinct snapped back into place. "So I'm a wanted man inside the palace I just saved." "Essentially. And what do you want?" Ronin asked. Lyra reached out. Her fingers brushed the golden scar on his chest. The touch sent a jolt of pleasure and warmth through him so intense his knees nearly buckled. She felt it too, her breath hitched. "I want to find who tried to kill me," she said fiercely. "And I want you by my side when I burn them down." The investigation didn't take long. With Ronin's new senses, he wasn't just looking for clues, he was hunting. He could smell the residual energy signature of the assassin's weapon. He tracked it through the ventilation shafts, down into the lower maintenance levels of Aethelgard. Lyra insisted on coming. When Kale tried to stop her, Ronin simply stepped in the way. For the first time, the giant Valari warrior looked at the human and stepped back. Kale could sense the power rolling off Ronin, the queen's power. "You are making a mistake, Ronin," Kale rumbled as they geared up in the armory. "You are walking a path that ends in exile. Better exile than a dead queen," Ronin replied, checking the charge on a heavy plasma cannon. He didn't need the armor anymore. His skin felt as durable as the plating, but he wore it for appearances. "The bond," Kale lowered his voice. "Do you know what it does to you? It is not just strength. If she dies, you die. If she hurts, you hurt. You have given up your freedom." Ronin looked at the monitor where Lyra was reviewing schematics. He felt her anxiety through the bond, a fluttering sensation in his chest. "I gave up my freedom the day I took this job, Kale. This just makes it official." They found the nest in Sector 9, an abandoned cargo bay. It wasn't just a lone assassin, it was a cell. Mercenaries heavily armed and led by a figure Ronin recognized from the intel briefings. Lord Varric, Lyra's own cousin. "Varric!" Lyra's voice echoed in the cavernous bay as they stepped out of the shadows. The treacherous noble turned, surrounded by a dozen armed guards. He smiled, his teeth sharp. "Cousin, you look remarkably healthy for someone who should be dead. And you look foolish," Lyra said, her voice steady. "Attempting a coup with hired guns." "Not just hired guns," Varric sneered. "And you brought your pet, the abomination." He pointed a finger at Ronin. "Look at him. A human polluted with our sacred blood. It's disgusting." "He saved me," Lyra said, "which is more than family ever did." "He dies first," Varric ordered. The firefight was instantaneous and brutal. Ronin moved before the mercenaries could aim. He wasn't just fast, he was a blur. He vaulted over a crate, taking 3 plasma bolts to the chest. Before the blood transfer, he would have been smoking meat. Now the bolts splashed against his skin, leaving only angry red welts that faded seconds later. He reached the first mercenary and punched him. The impact cracked the alien's armor and sent him flying 20 feet across the room. "What is he?" one of the mercenaries screamed, backing away. "I'm the guy who didn't get a raise this year," Ronin growled. He fought with a fluidity he'd never possessed. He could sense where the shots were coming from before they were fired. He could feel Lyra behind him, weaving her own telekinetic attacks, shielding his blind spots. They moved in perfect synchronization, a dance of violence. When he ducked, she struck. When she pushed, he fired. Through the bond, Ronin felt her rage. It fueled him. His golden scar glowed through his shirt, casting a terrifying light in the dim bay. Varric watched his team get dismantled and panicked. He pulled a device from his belt, a gravity grenade. "Lyra!" Ronin shouted. He didn't need to communicate verbally. He pushed the warning through the bond. Lyra reacted instantly, throwing up a telekinetic barrier, but Varric didn't throw it at her. He threw it at the structural support of the bay. The explosion tore the hull. The vacuum of space roared in. The sudden decompression sucked everything not bolted down toward the void. Crates, bodies, and air flew out into the stars. Ronin grabbed a stanchion with one hand and caught Lyra's wrist with the other. They dangled over the abyss. Below them, the infinite cold of space. Varric had anchored himself to the far wall, laughing. "Let go, human!" Varric shouted over the roar of escaping air. "She's too heavy, you'll both die." Ronin's grip on the metal stanchion was slipping. The force of the vacuum was immense. He looked at Lyra. Her eyes were wide, terror finally breaking through her resolve. "Let me go," her voice echoed in his head. Not spoken, but thought. "Save yourself, Ronin. You are strong enough to climb back." "Shut up," Ronin thought back. He closed his eyes and focused on the golden fire in his blood. He didn't know how to use it, but he knew it was hers. He drew on it, pulling every ounce of strength Lyra had given him. His eyes snapped open, glowing pure gold. Ronin didn't climb, he pulled. With a roar of effort that tore the muscles in his shoulder, he hauled Lyra up, swinging her into the safety of the airlock corridor. Then, defying physics, he kicked off the stanchion, launching himself across the vacuum. He landed on Varric with the force of a meteor. Varric didn't have time to scream before Ronin slammed him into the control panel, smashing the emergency seal button. The blast doors slammed shut, cutting off the vacuum. Silence returned to the bay, save for the hissing of air recyclers. Ronin held Varric by the throat, lifting him a foot off the ground. The noble clawed uselessly at Ronin's iron grip. "Article 1, Ronin whispered, his golden eyes fading back to brown. "Says a royal can't give blood to a lesser being. But it doesn't say anything about a lesser being teaching a royal a lesson in pain." "Ronin?" Lyra's voice was soft. She was standing by the door, her hair wild, her dress torn. "Enough!" Ronin dropped Varric, who collapsed, gasping for air. "He's all yours, Majesty." The trial was quick. With Varric in custody and his confession recorded, the threat was neutralized. But the problem of Ronin remained. 3 days later, Ronin stood on the observation deck of the Aethelgard, looking out at the nebula swirling in purple and gold. It reminded him of her. "They are still arguing, you know," Lyra said, stepping up beside him. She didn't announce her presence, she didn't have to. He had felt her coming from the elevator. "The council?" Ronin asked, not looking away from the stars. "Yes. They want to strip the blood from you. They say it can be done, but—" "It would kill me," Ronin finished. "Yes. And what did you tell them?" Lyra turned to lean against the railing facing him. "I told them that if they touch you, they will have to fight me. And since you and I are now the 2 strongest beings on this station, they decided to review the laws instead." Ronin chuckled. "Diplomacy at gunpoint. My favorite kind. It is effective." Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't awkward. The bond hummed, a warm current of contentment flowing from her to him. "You could leave," Lyra said suddenly, her voice losing its confidence. "I could give you a ship. Credits. You could go to the Outer Rim. No one would know who you are. You could be free of the politics." "By me." Ronin finally looked at her. She looked small against the backdrop of the galaxy, despite all her power. He realized then that the bond wasn't a chain. It was an anchor. For the first time in his life, he wasn't drifting. He stepped closer, invading her personal space in a way that would have gotten him executed a week ago. He reached out and took her hand. He felt the pulse of the golden blood in his own wrist syncing with hers. I was a mercenary, Lyra. I fought for money. Then I was a bodyguard. I fought for duty. He ran his thumb over her knuckles. But when that bolt hit me, I wasn't thinking about my paycheck. I wasn't thinking about my orders. What were you thinking about? She whispered, her violet eyes searching his. I was thinking that the universe is a cold, dark place, Ronin said. And you're the only light in it. Lyra let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for years. She leaned into his touch. Then you will stay? Try and make me leave, Ronin grinned. Besides, you've got terrible instincts. Someone has to watch your back. And you have my blood, she replied, a smirk playing on her lips. Which means you are technically royalty now. You have to attend the galas. Ronin groaned. I take it back. Send me to the airlock. Lyra laughed, a genuine bright sound that echoed on the observation deck. She pulled him closer, her head resting against his chest right over the scar that bound them together. Too late, Ronin, she murmured. We are in this together now. Ronin wrapped his arms around her, looking out at the infinite stars. For the first time, they didn't look like a void to be feared. They looked like a kingdom, and he was finally home.